by Ronald Reagan? Well. Hello, and welcome to today's episode of Stand Up. Do I have a conversation for you? I took most of yesterday off and got away for the day. Val and I actually went up to a lake nearby where we live that we'd never been, and a place called Greenwood Lake that actually is on both sides of the New Jersey-New York border, but don't worry, it has all sides of Trump fans. There were just so many boats on that lake, and there are that have F. Joe Biden flags and Trump flags. It's crazy. And those flags, by the way, are on what I grew up calling party boats, which we kind of made fun of for like old people. Those pontoon boats, you know, it's like a raft with a motor that can only pull your friend's kid on a tube, but can't teach someone how to water ski. Never struck me as real masculine. They just look like a bar, a wet bar on the water. Those had Trump flags all over them. They're everywhere, and there's Trump this and F. Joe Biden that. And it just really was never that. That doesn't strike me as a Trump thing. I don't know. But I did see the muscle tattoo Jersey guy who got off his Trump pontoon boat get into his truck. And that, I thought it was a monster truck. It was so big and masculine. Ugh. But I digress. We had a wonderful time. We surprised Leslie and Tom at Noble Pies, who got a new little yellow lab that I so badly wanted to. Was it a golden retriever? Either way, it's the cutest little dog named Harry, and I just had to see it and had to see them. It was just a wonderful day. Took the day off, but when I got home last night, I called my friend Jay Black, who is a comedian. He is a writer, a screenwriter. He's written several films and produced them as well. And he is in South Carolina producing a new film. And I caught up with him and we had an amazing conversation. And I'm so happy to share that with you. But I took most of yesterday off, so I just have this one to share with you. But it is just so good, I think. Jay is hilarious and thoughtful and introspective and kind and very, very funny. Did I mention that? Super smart, great guy. Love Jay Black. Loved talking to him and very happy to share this with you. I probably should have told folks, except for I didn't know, that I'd be posting the show in the early morning this week and a lot of last week because my daughters are away at camp and it's just my whole schedule's different. I'm waking up and doing my practice every morning, which is everything because it reminds me every morning of who I want to be. My meditation, my reading and writing. Highly recommend it, folks, to do it at some point during your day. If you want more insight or advice on what I'm doing, I'm happy to share. Just reach out, standupwithpete@gmail.com or come to one of our hangouts like tomorrow night. And I've been talking about it a little bit more there and maybe I'll talk about it here as well on the program. Somebody should interview me about it. Anyway, so my conversation with Jay Black, that's what I've got for you. I hope that's enough. I think this conversation is enough for today, which, like I said, I mostly took off. Jay is on Twitter at jblackisfunny.com, or rather that's his website, but his Twitter is at jblackisfunny. And I am so happy about this talk and hope that you appreciate it as much as I did and do. Also should mention there's a good long talk about suicide in this conversation, and I had to drop the ad about halfway into it, so hopefully that's okay. Hopefully you love it, and here we go. Okay, I've got Jay Black right now, and as I just told you all the great things about him as a comedian and a writer, I've also really grown to admire him and like him for several reasons, more than just his talent as a comedian, and I'm very happy to say that to your face over the phone. Thank you for joining me.
I appreciate that, Pete. Thank you for having me back. I love your podcast.
Yeah, I love talking to you. And you and I had talked a while ago about kind of creating some kind of a program or space or workshop for guys and men to talk and commiserate and help each other out. And I still certainly want to revisit that and want to talk with you kind of about some of the issues that we deal with and that we've dealt with. But first of all, where are you and what are you doing?
Well, so I am in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. I am executive producing a movie that I wrote. It's called Psycho Fiance. It's about a fiance who, I don't want to spoil it, but is psycho. And it's a Lifetime movie, or it should hopefully be a Lifetime movie, depending on when we sell it. But yeah, we're in the middle of production now. And as EP, I am essentially useless. I'm just on set if there's a problem. But otherwise, I'm just looking around going, yeah, is everything good? And then they nod and go, could you please leave? And then I do.
You're being modest, but I appreciate it. I mean, I've always known you as a stand-up comic who's done everything that you can do in stand-up. When did you start writing screenplays, screenwriting? How many films have you written and had produced?
So this will be the 10th one that I've written, have produced. It'll be the 8th TV movie, if it gets on TV, that aired. The other 2 were direct to DVD. So it started actually when I was still teaching, back when I was just a little baby stand-up. My best friend from elementary school, Brian Herzlinger, he made a documentary called My Date with Drew. And it just went nuts. Like, everybody loved it. It went to Aspen when there was still an HBO Aspen Comedy Festival. And it just blew up. And they kept asking him, what do you want to do for a follow-up? And it just so happened I was out in LA at the time. And we took a walk together and started shooting around ideas. And by the time the walk was over, we were writing partners. And we started cranking these out.
Oh, so have you written with him on all of these?
So I wrote with him on the first 8, and these last 2 I've done myself, only because I'm writing these for my own company. Brian and I still write together for other projects, but for this company in particular, I just write them myself because it's a small company, and this way I don't have to pay myself. I can be a bad boss to myself and not pay and not feel bad about it.
Jay, so, that's a pretty giant accomplishment to have that many films be sold, produced, made. I mean, I'm sure a ton about this business now, and most people that even write a screenplay never even get it read, much less sold and produced. And I mean, you must feel pretty amazed about that. You can downplay it all you want, but that's like unprecedented.
It is kind of cool, and I do like the fact that, at some point when I'm dead, probably, if I do everything properly within the next 3 years, my kids will at least have like this like document of stuff that their dad did that they can check out. And I am excited about that. I'll tell you how it actually happened. It's kind of interesting. Brian and I wrote this first script together. And it was awful. I mean, when I honestly, I believe we burned it. And that was, even then, ghosts came out. That's how bad it was. And then we wrote a second script. And by this time, after the first one tanked, I was like, nothing is going to happen with this at all. So I just wrote every funny idea that I had without regard to taste or good sense or any of this. This is 2006. I'm pretty sure if this ever came out now, I'd cancel myself. It was a long time ago. But what happened was we sent it out and we kept getting calls from these executives, and they would say, "Hey, I read your script. It's literally the funniest thing I've ever read in my life." And then I'd go, "Great, you're going to make it." And they'd go, "Oh God, no, I showed it to my boss. They're actively mad at me for showing it to them. There's no way we're ever making this thing." However, those executives got to know us. And then over time, as they moved up, we had a chance to work with them. And we had 4 or 5 projects, like big projects, like $30 million budgeted projects, get to the point where we wrote the script and we were in active development. And then it fell apart, which is what happens in Hollywood, especially at that budget level, which, by the way, makes you feel like a liar to all of your friends who aren't in the business. Because you go, "Oh yeah, I'm working on this project, big deal." And then like 3 years later, they go, "Hey, whatever happened to that?" And you have to pretend like, this is just the business. I wasn't lying to you. But as that happened, we just got, a reputation in the industry. And I'll just say this to anybody, especially comics who have a ton of downtime and a lot of great ideas. The big difference between Brian and me, and I think other people, is we finished. Like if you asked us to do something in 2 weeks, you'd have a finished script. And what I've noticed about creative executives is that they're not really good at coming up with ideas. but they're really good about criticizing ideas. And I don't mean that in a negative sense. I mean, like, they can bounce off of your ideas, but they got to see a completed script before they can do that. So, there's a lot. And, you've met 10,000 comedians that have an idea for a script. I would say the main difference between me and them is, like, just write it. Just get it done and get it out. Let people.
Yeah, you're not you don't strike me as a guy who's lazy or procrastinates. You had a good career as a teacher, which you liked, and you left that to pursue a career as a comedian and entertainment. You had a family, like, you knew that it wasn't something that you could slack on. That's the impression I get, at least.
Yeah, well, I mean, I would say this. Compared to other comedians, I'm a type A. Yeah. Compared to regular humans, I'm probably still lazy.
Right. Well, I don't even know about that. So I mean, how many, like, what kind of films are these generally? I feel like you've done a lot that have been bought. What is it right to say, bought by the Lifetime Network?
Yeah, so I've done a couple I did a romance that was bought by a company, a TV station called Ion. I wrote a Christmas movie that was bought by Hallmark, and this will be my sixth Lifetime movie that I've worked on. And these are mostly just thrillers, that it's, a lot of Psycho. I did Psycho Yoga Instructor, Psycho Storm Chaser, Deadly Yoga Retreat, a lot of anti-yoga stuff in my work.
Why is that?
Well, I'll tell you why. Because my wife took me to a yoga class with this yoga instructor she really likes, thought he was a great guy. And he was fine. It was fine. But then during the Shavasana, where you're laying down and the yoga instructor is talking about life, he was giving me life advice. He's a 28-year-old with like no shoes on. I'm like, you can't give me life advice until you get a mortgage, you dumb bat. So I was like, I'm going to take revenge on yoga instructors. And so I did.
I don't blame you for that at all. The idea that a person much younger than me is going to tell me about how to go through my day and peacefully and with joy, it brings me great resentment.
Yeah, he's like, listen, I took my Aunt BB to the DMV and sat in a line for an hour. There's no amount of yoga bullshit, Pete, that will ever make me feel better about that. So you just be quiet. So I started writing those, and I find that thrillers are very similar to joke writing in the sense that, like, what's a joke except a misdirect and a surprise? It's a trap that you build, right? It's you lay it out one way, and then all of a sudden you come at it sideways. And if you just adjust it a little bit into stabbing, you can come up with a pretty easy Lifetime movie. You're just literally killing instead of figuratively killing.
Well, I have so many more questions about your career as a screenwriter and producer and the entertainment industry in general, and I'd love to talk more with you about it. But there's a few more things that I definitely wanted to discuss with you. But first of all, you're down there. I saw on your Twitter timeline that you're there with at least one of your sons. You're in Myrtle Beach. You're shooting this movie. You're an executive producer. You're on the set every day, and at least one of your whole family with you.
So my wife and daughters will be coming down on Monday of next week. My son has been down with me for basically the whole shoot. He's 15. He's a PA on the movie. And I have him working every department, just sort of learning how it's all done. And I'm doing this because, my dad was a banker and said, you can get into the banking business and I can help you. And I went and did this crazy entertainment thing. I'm doing the opposite. I'm teaching my son the entertainment business so that when he comes to me at 22 and says, I've thought about it, I'm going to be a loan officer at a bank.
Smart.
I can go, nicely done. Good thinking, son. Go do that.
Very smart. So how long will you be there? How long does this film take to shoot?
So it's a 16-day total amount of time. It's 12 days of shooting with 4 days off sprinkled throughout. And we wound up in Myrtle Beach. We were originally going to do Arkansas, then we were going to do LA. And what happened was we lucked into this wonderful mansion in Myrtle Beach that's an Airbnb. And we just rented out all of the rooms. And we're using the upstairs to host our actors and crew. And the downstairs is just, the thing that Lifetime really likes, which is lifestyle porn, like rich people walking around in really nicely apportioned kitchens is a really easy way to sell to Lifetime. And this is the third one that my company has done. And if anybody wants to make a Lifetime movie, call me. Where I'm taking investment. I'd be happy to talk.
That's really fucking impressive. I really am serious. I'm not impressed with Myrtle Beach. I've been there. No. And it sounds like you got a nice place there that you've rented, and I'm sure there's beautiful areas. But I went there. We went there for a few days once for vacation. We stayed there for a few days, and I did not like it there.
No, it's like somebody took a look at Wildwood, New Jersey, and said, "Let's do that, but a lot more."
It's very much kind of Jersey Shore, boardwalk, tattoo parlors. Yeah, this is the national capital of ill-advised tattoos. Is that right?
And a lot of guys riding around with "Let's Go Brandon" flags and no helmets on their motorcycle.
Yeah, well, that sounds about right. That sounds like the right.
Oh, and Pete, I stopped at the comedy club down here to do a guest spot. Love the comedy club down here. Great people. But I did see a open micer do a guest spot, and he did an "I identify" joke. The "I identify as" it was one of his jokes, and I feel like we should have some sort of intervention program for young comics in the South, where we explain to them, no, you don't do that joke. Anything that appears on 4chan should not appear in your stand-up.
Oh, brutal. Wow. What else have you had any other, how long have you been down there? Have you had any other cultural experiences?
No, it's not, my son and I it's good to have a kid with me because we can talk to each other. I try not to really interact too much, especially because I never know with my politics. I just assume if I'm talking to somebody, they're like a normal, regular person. And I just worry. I'll go like, oh, my God, you see what Trump said? And then they'll point out to like one of those vans that are covered in Trump stickers and go, that's my van. And then I wind up dead inside of it.
Well, then your son has his first screenplay.
Yeah. Psycho Trump supporter. It actually is a label that could affix to many, many people.
How about this? Have you had on set on this film or anything else? Have you had any issues with anybody regarding politics as an actor or a more likely crew member? I'm generalizing, or anybody else. Does it come up? I mean, because the advice that I think we all need to kind of understand, and it depends on the time and the place, but these issues are so divisive and so visceral that it's hard to blame somebody for being really offended. And I wonder if that's happened to you. And if so, how do you handle it when you come across somebody who's a lunatic, if you will?
Well, luckily, everybody I'm dealing with, at least on this production side, is, are artists. And generally speaking, they don't hew to the right side of things. I did have one interesting conversation with the woman doing hair and makeup. She's out of Oklahoma, and she was telling me that she's like a big part of the gay community in Oklahoma, which was shocking to me that there is a gay community in Oklahoma. Not in like I can't believe that there are gay people in Oklahoma. Obviously, there are gay people everywhere, but like I was very happy that there is one. And I'm very worried about my red state friends who, I almost want to start a program where we can just bring anybody that is left of center or alternative lifestyle up to safe harbors. Because I was like, is it bad down there? And she's like, well, in the part of the city I'm in, it's not. But yeah, it can be bad if you're in the wrong part of Oklahoma. And I'm like, I just don't like the idea that there's a place that's bad for human beings anywhere in this country. It makes me sad. So that's the only real run-in politically I've had, and not in a negative way, just in sort of an illuminating way that, I'm from the Northeast, luckily, and it's the people up there don't have to worry as much. I assume I'm obviously, a cis white male, so I don't think about it as much. But my God, I just want to start a program where we put them on hovercrafts and just bring them to New York and let them be free.
That's awesome. I like that idea, and I would like to see how that plays out. Okay, the best part of my conversation with Jay Black is coming up, where we talk about what it has been like for him to have to overcome drugs, suicide, and so much more. It's really great. It's coming up. But first, I have to ask you, what's one of the greatest feelings as an entrepreneur? You say, what is it? Well, it's when you start building a team with people who care just as much about the dream as you do, and they have the skills to make it happen. And if you want to find those people faster, you need Indeed. Indeed is the hiring platform where you can attract, interview, and hire all in one place. Instead of spending hours on multiple job sites searching for candidates with the right skills, Indeed's a powerful hiring partner that can help you do it all. Find great talent faster through time-saving skills like Indeed Instant Match, assessment, and virtual interviews. And with Instant Match, over 80% of employers get quality candidates whose resume on Indeed matches their exact job description the moment they sponsor a job, according to Indeed data. One of the things I love about Indeed is that listeners are using it and that it's working. No other job site takes care of you like Indeed, because with Indeed, you only have to pay if an applicant meets your must-have requirements. Even better, Indeed's the only job site where you only pay for applications that meet. Indeed is an unbelievably powerful hiring partner, delivering 4 times more hires than all other job sites combined. Join more than 3 million businesses worldwide that use Indeed to hire great talent fast. And you know what? In this minute I've been talking to you, 16 hires were made on Indeed, according to their data. When you sponsor an Indeed post, you're 3 times more likely to get a hire. The right candidate is doing everything they can to find you. So if you use Indeed, you can be sure to do everything you can to find them too. Finding great talent does not have to be a second job. You can hire faster and better with Indeed, the #1 source of hires in the U.S. And Indeed is doing something no other job site has done. Now with Indeed, businesses only pay for quality applications matching the sponsored job description. Visit Indeed.com/standup to start hiring now. Just go to Indeed.com/standup. Indeed.com/standup. Terms and conditions apply. If you need to hire, you need Indeed. All right, now back to my conversation, the best part, with comedian and writer Jay Black. I wanted to ask you about, you had talked last time, not maybe last time, both times, maybe you and I, or what, have we done it 3 times now? And Noel got together for the January 6th hearings. You both talked about your sobriety, getting sober, and your recovery. Sure. And you and I think, have talked about that publicly before. But I was thinking today just about bringing that up again and trying to figure out the timeline for when that happened, because I know that was a major turning point for you, and changed a lot about your family, which seemed to have been, if I recall correctly, kind of slipping through your fingers. Would you mind reminding me kind of what you went through, and not more importantly, but I'm just trying to understand when that was.
Sure. So, I would say like 2013-ish, I was seeing a therapist, and it wasn't going swell, and my therapist said, I think you have ADHD. And I was like, okay, well, what do we do for that? And she said, well, you take Adderall. And she wrote me a place to go. And I went, and it was in my insurance, and I'm pretty sure, you would think that there'd be more safeguards. Basically, I walked in, and the guy was like, so why are you here? And I said, my therapist thinks I have ADHD. And he was like, okay. And he wrote me an Adderall prescription. And he was just like, be careful. If you like it, you probably don't need it. And I was like, okay. And Pete, I took it, and I liked it. But I didn't tell him I liked it. I just said, I think it's working. A blue flame went off in my brain, Pete, when I took it. Yeah, could you do give me more than that? So, it's like if you've ever had a manic phase in your life, if you've ever been where you are just crushing it, like you just got done a great set, you just got done writing something, you just had an achievement in your career, and you feel invincible, and you've just really you've done it. It feels like that on demand in a bottle. That's what it feels like. I don't hear that much about addiction to Adderall. How
common is it, and how similar is the feeling you just described to any other drugs that you know of?
So, okay. So Adderall, the one that I was on, it was Adderall IR. There's Adderall XR, which is less, it comes out slower. Adderall IR just hits your bloodstream immediately. And it's meth, Pete. It's all it is meth that is at a lower dosage than what you'd get, in a trailer in Myrtle Beach. And if you have ADHD, if you have a legitimate need for it, it does something with the way the dopamine is released in your brain that calms you down and focuses you, and in a good way. But if you don't have it, and it turns out I don't have it, or if I do, I don't have it at a level that I need Adderall IR. It hits your brain similar to cocaine, which I did cocaine while on Adderall, and it felt like a cup of coffee. Like I was like, this is nothing. Yeah, I was on at the time probably 100 milligrams of Adderall. So that, we're talking, I was abusing it to the point where the highest you can get is 60 milligrams a day, a 30 and a 30. And you're really supposed to break it up into 4 dosages of 15. And by the time I was done 3 years later, I was purchasing extra, and I was, probably hitting 100, 120 milligrams a day. And,
a day, every day for 3 years?
Yeah. Well, I mean, it built slowly. I'm talking the last year is probably when I was
taking Adderall every day for 3 years? Yes.
Massive amount of Adderall.
When did it become a problem for other people? When did you realize it was a problem for you?
So, probably. So what happened was, I get on it, and then within a year, my dad and brother both die, 6 months apart. My dad from lung cancer, and my brother, he was an alcoholic and had some liver issues, and he died. So on top of the Adderall, now I'm just like unmoored from humanity. You know what I mean? And one of the things that Adderall does to you, I mean, at least to me, and I think this, Noel would probably say the same thing about Donald Trump or any of the people that you see that are abusing Adderall. It turns you into a person that is unconcerned with consequences because you're high. I mean, you're feeling like you can conquer the world, and you do. My sets, my performance became very aggressive. I mean, you know me, I'm not a super aggressive guy, but like I'd get a heckler and I would just, not even be funny, just, go at him in a way that is just dissimilar from my personality. I changed as a human being. I became a darker, more using kind of person. I took advantage of people around me. I treated people poorly. I turned into an asshole. I say in my Twitter bio, recovering monster. I still have a hard time forgiving myself for the human being that I turned into.
That's interesting. I wonder what my excuse was. It wasn't drugs. So
that's your self-confidence, Pete.
Yeah, too much. It'll ruin you. So when does it become problematic?
So I have basically a mental breakdown where I'm suicidal. I'm spinning out of control.
How old are your kids at this point?
What? Pardon? I'm sorry.
How old are your kids at that point?
Probably. So 2016, we're talking 9, 5, and 1. So, I'm looking at them going, and I'm serious that my brain was going, oh, well, if I die, my wife will remarry someone better. So I'd be doing them a favor. Like, I didn't think of it in any way whatsoever. And what happened, like 6 months or a year before that, my across the street neighbor killed himself.
Oh,
shot himself. And I looked at their family, and they seemed to be doing okay. Like there was a lot of pain that they were going through, but they, I was like, well, life goes on. They'll recover.
You looked at them and decided they were doing fine?
Yeah. That's the level of brain logic that I had. It was basically just, I was looking around at the world going, Uh, it's a very hard feeling to explain, but I felt like I was closing the chapter on me. That, like every day was like you turned the page, but I didn't feel like there was another chapter coming around the corner.
Right.
And I'm sure many of the people that knew me then are probably disappointed that I didn't close the chapter finally. But
I felt that way after I saw your stand up, but that's different.
That guy should die.
Yeah, I didn't want you to kill yourself. I thought somebody from the audience was probably going to scream. I remember a guy screamed, "Please end it."
Yeah, no, honestly, people just seeing my show or seeing me in person probably should have ended it for me. But eventually, it just came down to my wife going like, "Hey, I'm leaving. I can't deal with this," and rightfully so.
Yeah, yeah.
And I was like, "Okay, well, let me go and see if I can fix this." And what happened was that we don't have a situation in this country that is like a step above weekly therapy and a step below full-time commitment in an insane asylum. Like there's no so what happened was I went to the intake at like an outpatient facility and they were like, "Hey, are you suicidal?" And I was like, "Of course." And they were like, "You're coming with us." And they locked me up. So for 72 hours, I was in basically an insane asylum. And it was funny. I'll tell you a quick story. On my intake, I had to talk to the doctor. And he was like, "Well, what do you do for a living?" And I was like, "Oh, I'm a comedian and I write and act in movies." And he was like, "Okay." And he wrote it down. Next day, I'm in the lunch line. And the doctor comes up to me and he goes, "Hey, you really do write and act in movies?" And I was like, "Yeah." And he's like, "I IMDb'd you. It's real." And I was like, "Uh-huh." He goes, No, you don't understand. One of the symptoms of psychosis is that you think you're in movies. Every single person that I've brought in here, like many of them have said, I'm a movie actor. You're the first one who ever was for real. And I was like, "Oh, awesome." And Pete, I swear to God, it's going to sound like a bit. I'm not lying to you. The doctor leaves. Guy behind me goes, "Oh, you write and act in movies?" And I go, "Yeah." And he goes, "Me too. I was Goose in Top Gun." For real. Like it wasn't the actual Goose, but that's what he said.
It was
to me.
not Anthony Edwards.
No, it was not Anthony Edwards. That would have been wonderful if it was.
The weird thing is that Steve Buscemi was also in that line, just rolling his eyes that no one recognized him.
Guys, it's me. I directed the. So after 72 hours, I was at a level of acuity that they were like, "Okay, you're obviously not insane. And you're obviously, it was suicidal ideation. It wasn't like you had a gun in the car." So they let me out. And they put me into outpatient, and I did 8 weeks of outpatient.
Wow.
And I got off of everything. I went cold turkey.
Wow.
And it was a slow process, and it's a continuing process. And if any of the people that are listening that knew me then, I'm so sorry. And to the people that are listening that know me now, thanks for sticking with me.
So was it just Adderall? Was that really the main problem, that you were addicted to this pharmaceutical drug that was the root of most of your issues?
Yes. So it was the Adderall, and then, I would drink, and then I would do more Adderall, and then I would drink more to sort of balance it out. My drinking really went up when my brother died of alcoholism because, the brain is funny that way.
Yeah, that's...
I was never an alcoholic, and I can say that with certainty. I was a pillhead. I wasn't an alcoholic, but the alcohol did not contribute to good decision making.
Can you have a drink now?
No, I don't. I mean, I'm certain that I could. It was never a matter of like I couldn't stop myself from drinking. But I think in general, it's probably a good idea not to change my brain psychotropically if I can.
Is any of it hard for you now? Do you get tempted to take drugs?
Yes. Well, no, not the drugs anymore. The first year was the tough time. I kept having dreams that I was finding old Adderall that I had
Oh
lost.
My God.
Yeah, that was an ongoing thing. The hardest thing now, in all honesty, is family barbecues. where my wife was like, can you please be social? And I was like, I can be sober or I can be social, but you can't have both, lady.
That's funny and surprising.
Well, you know what it is? It's like when I'm with other comics, I'm really good with, and I don't know how to say this, but like guys who I get and who get me, and we can just go back and forth, and it's just a quick exchange, and it's everybody's operating at the same kind of speed, and I can perform really well. I can be social in the sense of I'll be the funniest person at this table if you want me to, but to sit and talk to somebody about like, oh, there was not enough copy paper in the copy machine. That's hilarious. Like I'm bad at that. Like I'm really bad at not showing my boredom.
Yeah, by the way, I understand. I've described it as I like to have conversations of some consequence, and I struggle with conversations that don't have that. I've gotten better at it because I think it's kind of an arrogant thing to do, but right. I still am in pain when someone's telling a story that I'm not interested in, or striking up a conversation about something I really have nothing to offer. I avoid that as much as possible.
Even when I was in group, when we were doing group therapy, in my brain, I kept going, I could really punch that story up if you give me a little bit of time. It meanders like crazy, dude. You got to get to the point quicker.
What was were most of the people there for similar drugs? I always wonder about rehab, drug rehab, alcohol.
Yeah.
There's rehab for just about everything, which is good. I'm not making fun of it, but it could be an eating disorder. It could be any kind of addiction. Were there?
It was a whole bunch of different stuff.
Yeah.
And what was interesting was there two things. One, the idea that the first thing they do in group is check on your sleeping, your eating, and your exercise, which is interesting because of how central good sleep, good food, and good movement is to being mentally healthy that you don't think about. And it's the first thing that goes when you're slipping. When things are starting to go bad, you stop sleeping, you stop exercising, you start eating like shit. And that starts the downward spiral. So they'd always check in on that. But the second thing is every other person in there had a different thing. Some were alcohol, some were like heroin. Some were just shopaholics, believe it or not, that like spent all of their money. And
wow.
All of them have got into the same spot, which is I've destroyed my life. I've destroyed my relationships. I've become an asshole. I've hurt everyone around me, and now I want to hurt myself. How do I fix this? And the first thing that you do is listen to other people. Because other people are telling their stories, and your first instinct when you're talking to them is like, "Hey, man, you're not that bad a human. You fucked up, but it's not bad." And you realize it takes 3 or 4 weeks to realize, "Oh shit, that's what I should be saying to myself."
Wow.
Is that you do group therapy, and I was the one who was most resistant to it. But you do group therapy because, hearing other people's stories and feeling empathy for them is what teaches you empathy for yourself. And that's a really important step because you don't get to the level of addiction and problems that a lot of people got in there by feeling good thoughts about yourself. You get there out of self-hatred.
The problem as I see it, and let's just talk about men because we are them. I identify as a man, and I think a lot about my problems that I've had much of my life that I've struggled with trying to change, even though I've been able to identify them and even come up with solutions. And I talk a lot to people. I have a lot of friends, a lot of good, amazing, positive people in my life about those issues that I've struggled with. But I think that, like you said earlier, there's, a difference between kind of a 1 week program and a whatever, an 8 week program, or a one night in a hospital and something else, a 12 step. But I've always kind of joked around about, like, I wish I was an addict because there's a support group for that, and it's not weird to be there, which brings us to this kind of idea that I'm sure there's a lot of different places and spaces for this, but in this case, for men to talk about all of the shit that men seem to encounter in today's America or today's world. There's been so much written about it, studied about it, and I just want a support group. And I have it to some extent through the show. And like I said, I have a lot of friends. But I would love to, work on something more formal to that. So my question to you is, what if you don't have an addiction? What if you don't have a problem that there's a treatment program for? What if you don't even know what your problem is? You just know you feel like shit, or that your relationships are dying or languishing. Where's the group for those guys? And how do we create for lack of a better term, a safe space for guys to figure out what's wrong and realize, as you just said, when you hear other people talking about their shit, you have similar issues, and find out what they've done. What works for the rest of us?
It's a great question, and I like this statement of safe space, and I know that's a phrase that has been made evil by the right, but this idea that one of the things that I noticed when I was going through my spiral is that I talk about my act on stage as being cruel. It was, but the fact of the matter was I was killing Pete. I was doing a great job on stage, and I was selling screenplays, and it was this weird thing of, since my career, my vocation was good, I thought everything else was good. And I would say most people who was on the outside looking in would say the same thing. And I think that's true of a lot of men. We look at the stuff that we're doing and we go, well, I'm doing okay. Like I have a good job. I'm supporting my family. I'm doing an okay thing there. I shouldn't feel sad because all that's going on. I think we need the first step is to say it's okay to feel sad about that. It doesn't make you a bad guy. The second step, I do think that there is a culture that doesn't allow us to talk about this with other men. I think we were embarrassed. At least I am. It was hard for me to talk to my wife about it because I didn't know quite how to put it without offending her or making her feel like, oh, I've chosen the wrong guy. It was real hard. It was real hard to find anybody to talk to. And yeah, I was saved by rehab by, in a lot of ways, just having a group to talk to. So, maybe more podcasts like we were talking about, more open discussion about it. Or, we're bad at keeping friends, Pete. Men are terrible at keeping friends. Maybe reach out to your friends more often, see how they're doing and ask them for real, how are you doing? And don't get weird when they tell you.
I love that. And I want to talk to you more about what we could do together and with the podcast or with any other kind of resource. But before I let you go, I want to ask you about one political thing. I love talking about politics. I love your thoughts. I love your tweets, everything. It's pretty simple. The outtakes from Trump trying to make the video on January 7th. Yeah. My understanding is his people, including his son son-in-law, and the prince and princess, Jared and Ivanka, and others, convinced him that if he didn't do this, that there were enough cabinet secretaries that were going to pull the 25th Amendment, that he would be out. Right. They explained it to him that way. That's my understanding, and it makes sense because why else would he, try to make this video? Most people at this point have seen the outtakes. He can't say what they want him to say. And he also can't say the word yesterday. I feel like Donald Trump has had a lot of success from his time on The Apprentice and before, and his time as president, because he's been edited so much. Not always. We've seen him screw up, but I felt like that was a different guy. And I didn't feel embarrassed for him because it's him, but I almost did. It was so pathetic and so bad. And I wonder what you saw when you see those outtakes of him not being able to pronounce words, being obstinate against saying what they want him to say, including that the election is over. What were your thoughts when you saw those outtakes?
Well, my first thought is this is I think it a Cheney special. I don't have any proof of this, but like I just like the deliciousness of releasing televised bloopers from Donald Trump because you know that the control of his TV persona is so central to who he is as a person. To let people see what the process looks like had to have been like a shiv right in his orange gut. And
Yeah.
I like to think that a Cheney was involved in that because that's what they do. I could just be a group decision, but I like to think Liz Cheney did it. That said, I think we're starting to see, and I've thought this before, but I think we're starting to see a turning away from Donald Trump. I think DeSantis is the new hotness among, racists. I think that they like him. Fox News seems to be forgetting about Trump a little bit.
Don't you think? I feel like racist doesn't do justice to the personality that is certainly a certain type of right winger politician and leader and radio personality, TV personality, and their followers, which is asshole. And what I mean by asshole is, of course, racist, of course, sexist. You know that stuff, but really, they're trying as much as they can to be a jerk and to hurt the feelings of specific people who think a certain way. It's a character quality of assholery that is very specifically defined with a DeSantis and a Trump and many of their followers. So I almost feel like racist is limiting.
and a nice 100%. And I think it's a nice summation of their politics, which is to say it's all oppositional. There hasn't been, I tweeted this out recently. There hasn't been an original idea in the Republican Party since racism, but with a red hat. But if you look, they don't have any solution. They stop at the opposition. They go, we got to get rid of Obamacare and replace it with what? We'll figure it out later. We got to stop being woke. What do you want to do instead? Well, we'll figure it out later. We got to stop. They just have this list of things that they're against. And the only thing that they're for is the list of things that they're against.
Also very much against things that are very tiny problems for a very small group of people. Like the trans issue is an issue for trans people more than anything else. But they make it an issue for everybody. And then they make it seem like trans people are all over the place bothering them when they don't know any that they know of. I mean, so often they make issues out of very small, minor things that affect very few people, and then they blow them way out of proportion to get clicks and votes, it would seem.
And they're very good at othering people. This idea that, like, okay, you're a grandmother in Missouri, you don't know any transgender people that you're aware of, but you see the stuff on Fox News where drag queens are reading stories to fifth graders, and that melts your brain without stopping to think like, okay, wait a second. What's the harm in this? Number one. But number two, how often is this affecting me? But that's what an effective wedge issue is, which is getting people to be scared of things that don't affect them. And I miss the sort of Vermont, New England Republicanism of, well, what do I care? Like, can we get back to that, Republicans? Can we get back to not giving a shit? Like, if you want to dress differently or do differently.
I don't know if that was ever really an archetype of a Republican, as much as they said, live and let live. Like, really? Was it ever?
Yeah.
What if I'm black and want to sit in the front of the bus?
That's a very good point. But the ideal of that is something that I'd like to come back to. Anyway, to get back to your original question, I feel like, number one, this was a shiv in his heart. But number two, I think stuff like this, the J6 committee has had an accumulative effect, I think, not on the diehards, but on the people in between the never Trumpers and the MAGA, where, they liked Trump. They liked, he calls it as it is. The fact that DeSantis has risen with the same level of assholery, but not the buffoonery, has given them an alternative. And I have to confess, Long term, I think it's worse because smart Trump is bad Trump.
Yeah.
But short term, it makes me feel good that I can almost see the power slipping from him. And I take some pleasure in that, even as I know darkness is on the horizon.
Well said. Well said. And your thoughts on the video of Josh Hawley running? The right-wing radio host Hugh Hewitt was complaining to insane lunatic and pencil-necked racist Senator Tom Cotton, that the J6 committee edited that in that way, put it in there just to make fun of him, and it put him in danger, is what Hugh Hewitt said. It put a target on him, and I thought maybe they put it in there just to make fun of him. Maybe they did, but you know what? I was fine with that because
me too.
I mean,
he fist pumped the insurrectionists, number one, and number two. Guys,
I'm sorry, your phone broke up. He fisted an insurrectionist?
Well, you know what? I wouldn't be surprised. I feel like that explains why the shaman was howling. But in all honesty, Pete, the guys that are the loudest about anything the Democrats are doing, we all know that it's gamesmanship. We all know that they would do the exact same thing. If they had video of AOC farting out of fear, you don't think that would be on a loop on Fox News? I mean, come on.
Is there video of that? Just asking for a friend.
No, I guarantee you if there is, it's in a locker next to Ted Cruz's bed. But you know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
they're complaining about it, but they're the first to do it.
Yes, well,
and frankly, the Democrats need to play by those rules. I was so excited when the Lincoln Project happened, and I really do. I know that there is a lot of controversy around them, and I know a lot of progressives hate them, but we need dirty tricks because they have dirty tricks. And we tried going high when they go low, and honestly, it just doesn't work, Pete. There's
dirty tricks, but I always feel like the difference is they make things up to get us outraged. They say that someone did a thing or said a thing completely opposite to what is true. What's the one that they've been doing lately that I've heard, which is absolutely preposterous and not even remotely true? But it's gained a lot of ground. Boy, I can't think of it, but it's just not remotely true. Yeah. Whereas Democrats, when you say play dirty, I just feel like they're not lying about things.
Josh Hawley really did run like a coward, and that what we need to do is that it shouldn't just be on J6. If I ran MSNBC, that would be my opening bumper and closing bumper of every show for a month. Look at this guy. And it's unfair, but that's the kind of unfair that we need. You actually did this, and now we're going to remind everybody about it forever.
Yeah, well, I think that's what MSNBC and a lot of other media networks are doing with the J6 committee hearing findings and tape. I mean, you turn on MSNBC just about any time, and you're seeing the same excerpts that you and I and Noel were talking about. They're on a loop, and I actually don't think there's anything wrong with that. I think it's such an important thing that for the country to understand. And, as much as we watch those hearings and I've read analysis about them, we've given our own, I still forget. I still need to be reminded, oh, my God, wait, they did what? I mean, if
this were a Democratic president who did the same thing, the Fox News would be dropping like 1940 style pamphlets at the beach on people. Like there'd just be like cargo planes dropping pamphlets in, and there'd be Tokyo Rose, talking about it constantly. It needs to be said, not just from the point of view of convincing people not to vote Republican, but as you said, to remind the people that we lived through a dark time and exactly how dark it was, because you do forget.
One of the examples that I was thinking of where they just, say something that's just so blatantly untrue is late-term abortion.
Right.
It's so horrific for a woman and often her partner to realize that their baby, who is that far along, is either not going to survive or be in tremendous pain their whole life, or the woman is going to have complications. And the idea that women are at the very end of their pregnancy or in the third trimester deciding they don't want the baby, it's just not a thing that happens. And what really happens is a tremendous and painful struggle. And to dismiss that and act like women are killing their babies at that point is so insidious and damaging. And it even gets a lot of people that are, thoughtful people like, you know what, listen, that's where I draw the line at the third trimester. And I want to be like, yeah, everybody does. Are you fucking kidding me?
Right. Exactly. No, there's no rational human being that is in favor of willy-nilly, just like, okay, well, the baby's a month old, but you don't want him, so let's just take care of it.
No, we usually do that when the baby's like 2 or 3, I think.
Right. Exactly.
Those tough years.
But yeah, oh geez, they'd put them in an ejector seat and fire them out of the car. But yeah, you're right. There's no, it's a lack of humanity for a political win that is so cynical, not just about the way the world works, but just the specificity of their audience. We know, I say it all the time on Twitter. This is for your dumb audience. And what I mean by that is the person tweeting or talking about it knows that they can say anything bad about Democrats and there won't be a single person in their replies that Google it, and they'll just accept it on face value. And that level of nihilistic cynicism, I mean, that's the end, man. Once you get to that point, believe me, that's how I felt when I was on the Adderall. America is an Adderall addict. We got to get off of it. And the Adderall is MAGA.
Great place to end. I told you 30 minutes. We talked for an hour. I can't thank you enough for being there tonight, and congratulations on the film. Good luck with the rest of it. I love being your friend, and I think that now that things are, starting to return to normal, maybe we could see each other in person. But regardless, I hope we can keep talking the way we have been. It's been really gratifying. I look forward to doing it again, pal.
Absolutely, brother. Thank you for having me on. I appreciate it.
All right. And there he goes, Jay Black. Jay Black is funny.com. That's his Twitter handle, and that is what I have for you today. Thank you for spending some of your day with me. Thank you for tolerating the ad. Thank you for... And by the way, if you want an ad-free version today, I'm going to start putting them up for stand-up subscribers, and you can listen to it over on the Patreon app, patreon.com/standup. I will send you the ad-free version of today's episode and hopefully future episodes as well. I think I can do that for you, but you got to sign up. Go to standupwithpete.com and sign up for as little as $5 a day or more. Thank you to Mark Cunningham for editing his pledge upward. You can always do that. You can always pay more, and it means a lot. That's the only way I can sustain this podcast every single day of the weekday, and sometimes more. Always thinking of more ideas that we can do here on the show and for the show. If you want to contribute, let me know. standupwithpete@gmail.com. But that's it. That's all, and I hope that you can be the change you want to see in the world, my friends. John Carroll is a person who does that, and here he is singing us out right now. JohnCarroll.org. Go buy this single, Stand Up, from Grammy award-winning singer-songwriter, friend of ours, mentor of ours, brother of ours, John Carroll. Take it away, bye.
Better stand up, stand up. Show your face of every color, yellow, black, red, and brown. She's the place where every lost child will finally be found. There's only one thing to do before we stand our ground, and that's stand up, stand up. Well, the founding fathers saw a land for all. They had to stand up, they had to stand up. They had a keen imagination for a crystal ball, drawing all the plans of stand up. But all they had to go on was the time they were in, with other causes for loss, and since they weren't even sin, they knew that change was gonna come before the change could begin. They had to stand up. All right, they had to stand up. We got to stand up. We got to look the devil square in the eye. and see them flee the scene of that experiment. If you stand up, alright, we got to speak up, we got to reach up and raise your voice in every way you know how. Don't be toes up, you got to show up. Ain't no better time to do it but now. No need to pledge allegiance to no wanton tribe. Rise up and show obedience to the voice inside. And listen well and it'll tell you not to run and hide. It says stand up. Stand up. Got to stand